2013 was a better year for women in business, but there is still room for improvement. Catalyst research shows that only 4% of the Fortune 500 companies have women as CEOs, but that's an improvement from last year when it was at 3.5%. Most of that increase came in the last few weeks. A notable part of the increase has been just very recently. We've seen the first female CEO of a major American automotive company, a woman to join Twitter's board shortly after its IPO, and economist Janet Yellen's nomination to be the first woman to head the U.S. Federal Reserve. She's expected to be confirmed early next year. Now, earlier I spoke with best-selling author Joanna Barsh and former senior partner at McKinsey & Company. I asked her about women business leaders and the differences between men and women and how they lead.
And what's interesting is when you look at the leaders who have these attributes that I believe are actually essential for leading today as opposed to 100 years ago, let's say, then you're going to find that many men have the same attributes. So it's not to say that all women have them and no men do. You're going to see a great overlap between great leaders. They're going to be talking about meaning. They're going to be bringing positive emotion. They'll build community. They will, in fact, build consensus for decisions, and they'll infuse the place with energy. And who doesn't need that in today's environment?
And I want to maybe take this a step further, and you talk about leadership, and we're blessed in a way that here, it's not a hot conversation because there's a lot of women in leadership roles, and for a lot of women, they have tremendous rights and they have tremendous ability, and we really don't share that you versus me thing. But around the world, there's still significant issues with women's rights. Not in leadership roles, but in basic places for just like, for example, let's just take education, for example. A lot of women, I'm sure, definitely look up to you and to the other women out there in leadership roles. What advice do you tell these women who are just trying to get educated and trying to find out where the glass ceiling even is? I mean, there's a long road ahead still for a lot of people around the world.
Yes, there really is. And if you look at the facts are that more and more women are graduating college and graduate school than ever before. In fact, in many countries, more women than men. However, women are not making it through a pipeline. They're not making it in companies. They're not making it in government. And men are still 2 to 3 times more likely to make it to the next level versus their female peers. So we know it's harder. We also know there are 4 types of barriers that hold many women back. There are structural barriers. There are life choice barriers. There are barriers that are even more insidious around mindsets that we hold. So what I guess my best advice for women struggling to get an education, to get a start, to move through all of those barriers, particularly the ones that your own family, your own company, your own country provide, is to keep asking yourself, what is it I really want for and from myself? And think about that upside and move toward it, knowing that it's going to be uncomfortable to grow.
I want to give you a real life scenario. Young gal works at a financial institution. She's surrounded by men bosses. She's a smart, intelligent individual, likely to advance, but the timing, of course, is important. These bosses of her are male, and they feel perhaps a little bit threatened, for lack of a better word. I'm sure everyone can relate to some of these stories. She comes to you and says, what do I do? If I make a big stink about trying to get promoted, she's going to come across as she's going to get some heat. It comes back to her. If she doesn't do it, she also is under pressure as well from herself because she's probably thought about these issues, these very issues. What advice to give to you give to somebody who is working their way up the corporate ladder and feels that there's something there that she just seems restricted by, that she seems like if she says something that there'd be pushback or consequences?
Well, first of all, you gotta push. So the best way to push is to have a sponsor. If you bring those issues forward in an unemotional way that helps people see an outcome that's good for everybody, well, usually they go with it. People truly have good intentions, and it will be a rare situation, obviously they exist, I'm not a fool, where people want to hold you back. But most of the time, if you do good work and you're willing to speak up and take your stand, and you do it in a good way that helps everybody around you see the outcome, it's going to work out fine. Even better, frankly, if you have a sponsor or two. And that's what I would tell you the minute you start working, is to do great work for somebody who will see it, appreciate it, value it, and begin to value you. And that's the beginning of the relationship.
Good advice from Joanna